Action.
Welcome to Off Camera, the UC Film Society radio show all about movies. I'm Ollie.
And I'm Jake.
And we'll be your directors for this episode. This week on Off Camera, we're joined by Ollie Williams. We'll get to hear about his experience writing and directing a short film, find out some of his filmmaking favourites, and learn more about his future in film. Welcome, Ollie.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to have you on. So, you are a second-year film student here at UC.
Yes.
You are a director.
Yeah, director, assistant director, also write a few little bits.
Lovely. And you've just recently written and directed your first short film?
Yeah, this is the first one I think I've probably shown to the world. I have little ones that I just kind of keep to myself, but yeah.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, that's really awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience as a filmmaker, as a UC film student?
Yeah, sure. I sort of came in into UC as a filmmaker sort of a bit later on in life, sort of in my mid-20s, after just sort of trying the university experience at other places and realizing, actually, I just want to make films. So I decided to come here to make film, and I've been really loving it. I mean, I usually come from a more sort of analytic sort of perspective, but actually being there in the production is so much so rewarding here at the UC, and yeah, it's great. And the opportunities just to make films, even on a side project, is just immense. So it's really, really great experience.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really good here. What's drawn you to directing?
I think it's it's sort of that storytelling thing. I feel like I have a lot of things I want to say about the condition of the world, in terms of not only stories, but sort of treatise on how I feel about things. And so I think that's kind of what's drawn me to it, is sort of, I feel like, a much more expressive part of the filmmaking process, which is what I really enjoy. But there's also the element of that production side, which is also why I like assistant directing, which is the being part of a process and organizing a process and putting all the pieces together like a little jigsaw. And it, at the end, it's oh, now I've created this sort of great piece that I'm sort of happy with. And also not happy with in some ways. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's always a bit of that balance, finding what's right to keep, what you got to leave out, maybe in the editing process or even just when you're shooting. Being an assistant director is rough like that, but you've got to balance the needs of the crew, of the director, of the location, of the editor, just everyone.
Directing and first AD directing especially, I feel like is a great mix between production and the creativity. You get the best of both worlds, I think, in that space.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's it's exploring two sides of how I feel about film. The sort of, I'm very process orientated in sort of my approaches, and I think that AD kind of salves that sort of scratch that I have, and then that creative side, I definitely really enjoy when directing, especially when I'm on set. I'm kind of as a director, I'm much more sort of quiet, not quiet, but I'm a bit more thinking about things, while when I'm ADing, I'm okay, everybody, you need to do that, you need to do this, let's stay on task sort of thing. Sometimes people get a bit annoyed with me for that, but I'm guys, we've got to get this shoot done.
That's the AD's job.
Yeah.
You're there for people to get annoyed at, so that they don't get annoyed at the director or the cinematographer or anyone in an important creative position who has to be thinking and doing their own thing and not being disturbed.
So bold of you to take that role.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Run, your recent short film?
Yeah, so we just sort of finished Run within the past month. It's just a little film that primarily me and Cameron made. Cameron Pike, who was my cinematographer and also editor, and also did a lot of other little roles as well, including ADing and sort of a bit of a mix. And we had some other people involved as well during the process. It's a short little film. It's about relationships and driving. And that's all I really want to say about it. I don't want to give too much away about the plot. But yeah, it was a sort of fun process in some ways, but also quite difficult in terms of trying to find people, trying to find locations. Safety was a big thing during that shoot. There was a few times where we were a bit like, I'm not sure if this is the best practice in terms of safety, but we really are really happy with what we made. So yeah.
Awesome. What was the process like for filming the driving scenes?
So we got our actor, Joshua, to drive while we filmed. There was three of us, one recordist, who was Ben. Cameron was filming and I was sort of directing in this sort of semi minivan sort of thing. And he was just gunning it down these roads. And we were sort of like, if you hear the audio, it's us going like, hey, can you slow down a little bit? Like, you're kind of taking these corners a bit rough. And Cameron was like, oh, can you slow down? Because like we need to do the camera. And there was sort of me just sort of being like, okay, make sure you get a shot of his head and then also get that shot with like the frame of the trees and the frame of the car. And really what we wanted to do with that is sort of make it seem like the experience of being a child in the backseat of a car. I think that's what I was really kind of going for in terms of tone and visual appeal. And I feel like we kind of got that feel in a lot of sense. So that's what I was really, really happy about with the shoot.
Yeah, Jake and I got to watch it last week, and I would definitely say, after hearing you say that, that's come across.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great.
That's so awesome. I didn't even think about that, but now that you say that, I look back and I'm like, oh, that's totally what I felt. It's definitely like he's just taking you along this journey, and you're there with him, but you're also just subservient, so you kind of just watching him like a child watching their parent drive in the backseat. It's a really awesome film.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay, Ollie, we have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
if you've prepared this, but what is your favorite movie?
I go up and down with my favorites. I think overall, like when I think of like structure and best overall film, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly by Sergio Leone. I'm a sucker for westerns, and I think that's probably one of the best, if not the best western ever made. And there's so many elements of that film that I just completely love. Cinematography, sound. The acting is a bit funny in some points because it is dubbed over because it originally shot in Italian, but it's such a great film.
Yeah, I watched that with my dad last year, and we were both sitting there like, this is really, really good. It's really long. Like, every scene, it just kept going and kept going and kept going. We're like, surely there's like a climax soon. But every scene had like a punchy bit where you thought it might be the climax, and then they just kept going, and then there was another scene in another location. And it was really long like that, but it never felt boring. Like, it didn't feel bad that it was that long. It was just like, oh, I'm surprised it hasn't ended yet. That's cool.
Yeah.
It was
There's all
enjoyable.
these like little elements that create such a sort of great sort of adventure. And like these little stories that these characters find themselves in that just make it so great. I mean, I think one of my favorite scenes is Tuco, who's the ugly, and he's in that gun store with the gunsmith, and he just starts taking all the pieces apart, and it just like completely takes control of the whole scene, and then just is like, I'm taking the gun. It's such a great scene. And not to speak for that climax is probably one of the best sort of cinematic moments in all of history, with that sort of 3-person showdown and that twist at the end of like what actually happens.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
One of my
Have you
biggest
seen it?
cinema blind spots is I've never seen that movie.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's high up on my watch list, and I definitely need to.
it's long,
Yeah.
it's long as Ollie said, but
There's some films that I'm
it's worth
just
it.
saving for that time where I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna watch it. That's one of them.
Yeah, when you're in like I really want to watch a movie. Like,
Yeah.
not I have a particular one in mind. I just
Yeah.
want to sit down. It's like a nice Sunday afternoon or something. I want to watch a movie. That's a great thing to watch.
I'm definitely gonna do it soon.
Awesome.
yeah, it's great.
Okay, Ollie, who is your favorite director?
That's a hard one. I think like with directors, like I kind of have to come in thinking like, what kind of film do I want to watch? At the moment, I'm really into Jim Jarmusch. I think he's great. I think he's doing so many interesting things with how he makes films in terms of there's so many elements that he combines, especially if you look at his history in journalism and music. Like you're like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. Like how his storytelling process, how he uses music throughout his films, and also he just completely changes style and tone all the time, from like these sort of harsh, gritty sort of elements, and then these sort of quite absurdist comedy parts, and you're just like, oh, that's great. It's so good. Dead Man is great. I love Dead Man. His Western film, and then also Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai.
I really want to see that movie.
That's so good.
Yeah,
it's like the ultimate action movie. It's a samurai film set in the hood, I think, and it's Forrest Whitaker, and you're just like, this is great.
Just incredible stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of his movies, but they all look amazing.
There's several of them on my watch list.
Yeah.
I definitely want to check all of his work out.
He's great. I still have to go through his entire sort of filmography. So a lot of those films are not hard to find, but sometimes you forget. You're like, oh,
that's the thing.
right.
I can't find any of those movies.
Yeah. But it's worth it. I think he's great.
Do you have a favorite actor?
I'm like super into like the big stars. I think sometimes it can be a bit distracting when you see them in a lot of films. Right now, I think when I think of my favorite actor, I like to think of actors who always choose good films and they're never a distraction. And weirdly enough, I think Jesse Plemons, I think he always chooses great films, and I've never felt like, oh, he's like an A-list sort of distraction kind of guy.
He's so amazing.
Yeah, he's good. Another Western, Power of the Dog, he was great in that.
Yeah, he was amazing in that. He's going to be in the new Martin Scorsese Western, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, he's going to be great in that.
Like, just great roles.
Yeah.
Fantastic
he always
choice.
chooses really good films.
What have you been watching recently?
I haven't really watched too many films. I think the last film I watched was kind of on my list of like sort of Oscar-winning films from the 90s and 80s. I watched Philadelphia with his Tom Hanks.
I really want to see that film.
Yeah, it's good. I really liked it.
I just like those two guys a lot, and I love Jonathan Demme. He's an amazing director.
Yeah, there's some really good elements in that film, and you realize when you look at what time it was released, you're like, oh, there's all these films that came post that were inspired by what this film was doing. And the story's great, and then I love a good sort of courtroom drama as well. Yeah. So that element of it was really good.
Jake, what have you been watching recently?
So yesterday for reading movies, we had to watch 2007 Coen Brothers masterpiece, No Country for Old Men.
Oh, great.
Have you guys seen it?
Oh,
I have not.
So good.
It's amazing. The way that film is just a masterclass in building tension and suspense. I've never seen a film do it better. It rivals Hitchcock in terms of building suspense and like how they do it with the camera, with no dialogue. There's stretches of that movie, no dialogue, no sound, no score. Just watching this guy just get chased. It's amazing. I love that film so much. And I also watched 2 M. Night Shyamalan films that I hadn't seen before. Glass in 2019 with James McAvoy, Samuel L. Jackson. Hadn't seen that before. It was solid. And then I watched Knock at the Cabin, which is 2023 release starring Dave Bautista, which I thought was really good. I'm an M. Night Shyamalan defender. I think he's made some amazing movies. He's made some bad movies, but Unbreakable in 2000 with Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis is one of my favorite movies, and I think that movie's great. So
I mean, that whole saga, Unbreakable,
Split's really good. The Sixth Sense is amazing. Signs is amazing. I think he's a good director.
Yeah, I love Sixth Sense. I haven't seen Signs, but I hear mixed reviews about Signs.
It's got a wacky ending.
Yeah.
But Joaquin Phoenix is amazing in it. It's really cool visually.
Yeah.
I think he's a good director.
And yeah, you're so right about No Country for Old Men. That's, I think, like go to just like building the tension, and also there is like absolute fear in every scene. You're just like dreading what's going to happen.
And every choice they make is the right one, but it's also so jarring that it feels like the biggest and most daring choice.
Yeah.
But then you think about it for a second, you're like, oh, that was the correct thing to do. I won't spoil it, but
that's great.
Yeah.
Nice. I've put it on the list.
Great.
Ready to watch it. I've been watching no movies, but a TV show. It's called Jonathan Creek. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a
Not the TV show, I thought you were going to say.
1997 crime drama comedy about this guy. Jonathan Creek is a like magic designer. He designs illusion tricks for this famous magician in the world. And then all these crimes happen where there's this like sleight of hand or some trick that the police just can't work out, and he gets brought on either through like knowing someone involved or just seeing it in the papers, or maybe there's like a bounty, like a $50,000 reward or whatever, and he gets brought on and then just solves it like that. And it's like good 45-minute episodes that just, it's easy to watch and it's good fun.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I love a good sort of serialized crime sort of drama series, especially from that era. The 90s is so good for that sort of stuff.
Okay, so there are a couple of new films upcoming. We've just had the first teaser for the second Aquaman movie, which DC's been ramping down their... with James Gunn's new DCU coming out, DC's been ramping down their old DCEU, and this is meant to be the final film. And we haven't heard much about it lately, but we finally got a teaser. Aquaman 1 is the highest grossing DC movie, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Or DCEU movie, maybe.
Even that's surprising to me.
And I think it's one of the best reviewed ones. And it's the same director and writer coming back for the second one, so potentially will be just as exciting to the audience.
Not a fan of the first movie, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I can't say it doesn't really appeal to me. That sort of, I don't mind a superhero movie, but I think Aquaman is a bit of a crazy character.
It goes really campy, which I kind of appreciate. Like, my favorite movies are like the Raimi movies, the Spider-Man movies, which go really campy. This is a bit different. So I guess I can appreciate it, but just not for me.
Fair enough. September 29, big day for movies. The Creator is coming out.
Can't wait.
Looks absolutely stunning. Cannot wait to see it. Same day, Saw Patrol. The Paw Patrol the Mighty movie and Saw X are coming out on the same day. It's the new Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
Saw Patrol.
It's going to be better.
Yeah, that's the double feature of the summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You take your kids to both, just,
October 6th, a new Exorcist movie is coming out, The Exorcist Believer. For anyone interested in Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour movie is coming out on October 13.
Oh, finally.
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
And then Killers of the Flower Moon comes out October 20. So that's very exciting.
Oh, man. That episode we do after that, I'm going to go all in about Marty.
I haven't seen that many Scorsese movies. Obviously, we watched Taxi Driver for last week's episode. I had seen The Departed and Hugo before that, and that's about it. I heard about Killers of the Flower Moon from the true crime. Like, I heard about crime, like the whole story first. And then right at the end of this like podcast episode I was listening to, they were like, and then they're making a movie of it by Scorsese with DiCaprio.
So you know the whole story.
And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, I know the whole story.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
I've stayed away. I know it's based off a book.
It's based off a book, which is based off real life.
Right.
So it's going to be intense. It's a crazy story.
Have you heard how long the movie is?
No, I haven't.
It's 3 hours and 36 minutes.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I can't wait.
Fair enough. There's so much content to cover, and there's so many different threads in this story that pull together. And it's just like, they all seem disconnected when you first see them. And then at the end, it's just like mind blown. So awesome. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I love a good Scorsese film. 3 hours is a lot, but yeah.
It's 3 minutes shorter than The Irishman.
Oh, yeah, The Irishman. I think I couldn't quite get into it. It was a bit too long for me. And I think it's just the structure of it was just a bit too, I think, not boring, but I think it was just like, it felt a bit tedious at times. I think I just wasn't in the right headspace.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be in the right headspace for that one.
But yeah, I love Scorsese. So I'm excited for him to do a Western. So
it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of movie news this week. Eddie Izzard is going to play Dr. Jekyll in a movie coming out in October. Obviously, we've already spoken about Aquaman 2. There's a new trailer for Killers of the Flower Moon, so a bit more content out for that. There's an adaptation for Murder, She Wrote coming out.
What?
So TV series being turned into a movie, another one.
That's not going to be... Sorry, I love Murder, She Wrote as a TV series. I think it's great. It's like each episode is like a little movie. I think for them to do a full-on movie without... I forget the original actress who played Jessica Fletcher. I don't know. It just won't be right without the original actress because she passed away, unfortunately. But I love that series.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
It might turn out to be really good. You never know. But even chance says it's not as good as the TV show. Could still be good, but maybe not as good. And then there's not much else exciting in the way of movie news. The trailer for One Life has come out with Anthony Hopkins. It's the movie about the guy who saved like 400 Jewish people from the Holocaust. So that's going to be a very harrowing film. I think they called it the British Schindler's List or something like that.
It premiered at a film festival this past week, and all I heard was just tears in the screening. So I'm sure I'll get nominated for an Oscar for it because Anthony Hopkins always gets nominated for an Oscar, and especially if it's a film like that and performance like that.
Yeah. Ollie, we play a game called Quick Pitch. The way this works, one of us picks a director, one of us picks an actor, and one of us picks a genre, and we have to pitch a movie and come up with a title for it all together. Last week, we came up with a Tarantino movie. It was a steampunk animated movie starring Danny DeVito called Once Upon a Time in the Future. Oh, no, sorry. A long time ago in the future.
We had trouble coming up with a name.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a hard one to do.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with his sort of naming conventions. It's a bit sort of like, what?
We all said the genre, the director and actor, and we were like, where are we going to go with this?
But it sounds hilarious. Danny DeVito is in a hospital running away from nurses and hides in a closet. This is all in live action. The closet then disappears, goes through some wormhole thing, turns into animation, and then he's hundreds or thousands of years in the future in a sci-fi steampunk world, and he has to fight his descendant who is a cyborg who is trying to take over the world.
Oh, yeah. I sort of see it. Yeah.
You see it?
Yeah.
Because it's a reverse revenge story. This cyborg, Tarantino's all about revenge stories.
Yeah.
This cyborg has sullied the family name, and Danny DeVito has to get revenge and also save the world while doing so.
And we found it really funny because Quentin Tarantino's always said that he's going to make 10 movies. And
this will be his
9 now, so that would be his last movie.
That would be his last. Yeah.
It's a good way to go out.
Yeah,
And-
good way to go out.
And we decided that in the marketing, all of the trailers would only show clips from the first 5 minutes where it's all live action, so nobody would know it's animated. And you go in, and you're like, oh, this is a sick Tarantino movie. Danny DeVito's a weird actor for Tarantino, but that's cool. And then, bam, it's animated, and you'd be like, what? And then you'd love it because it's a fantastic story, and we're not biased.
Yeah, I guess it's like breaking convention. I mean, Scorsese famously did Hugo, which was like a complete change to what he usually does. And you're just like, oh, this is weird. And then it's like, oh, it's
it
a
turned out really well.
It's
as
really
well.
good.
I really like Hugo. I think that's a good movie.
And and you realize it's a kids movie, but it's also a love letter to
cinema,
to French cinema.
Yeah.
And all that the sort of early 20s, sort of how they were doing that. And it's also even because he famously did it on digital as well. So I do like when directors sort of break their sort of style, and I think Tarantino doing an animated sci-fi in steampunk would definitely probably achieve that.
Yes, it would be a bit of a subversion of everyone's expectations, which, as we all know, subverting expectations is sort of what you want to do as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to jump into it. This week we're going to do a new one. Last week I picked the actor and you picked the director. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this week I'm going to pick the director because I did genre before that. You're going to pick the genre, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And you can pick the actor.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Who goes first?
You go first. I have some ideas for directors, but I'm not certain yet.
Horror.
Horror. Okay, that's helpful.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say I haven't seen him in a horror film. Brad Pitt. I don't think he's ever done a horror.
World War Z is not a horror film.
Yeah.
Not really a good movie either, but
Yeah.
sort of that.
I started reading the book,
Yeah.
and it was so intense, and I was like, because there's like so many different. Every chapter is like a different story.
I've never read the book.
It was very confusing. I was also like, I was in year 4, so maybe I was just stupid. Then I never watched the movie, but I was told that it was a bit more of a straightforward story, and I was like, maybe I should watch that if I didn't understand the book. Anyway, director, Brad Pitt, horror movie. Because I've got it up here and I know his other movies, James Wan.
Oh, nice.
The director of the Fast and Furious movies.
And
he's
Solo.
also Aquaman,
He's
and
done
Solo. Yeah, he's done a bunch of movies,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's worked with Brad Pitt
No.
or done a horror movie as far as I'm
James
aware.
Wan did Saw.
Oh, he did Saw.
Yeah, and Malignant, which is a horror film in 2021.
Yes, true. Okay. Well then, I think horror could work even though it's not like his mainstay.
Yeah, we can go James Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you said Solo, not Saw. I was like, I don't remember him doing
Saw.
Solo.
He's done The Conjuring, Insidious, Saw, Malignant.
Okay, he's done a lot of horror
He's
movies.
done-
Never
he's done
mind.
a lot of
I
horror,
am
yeah.
not well versed enough in his horror. I was gonna say discography, but that's not correct.
Filmography.
Catalog. Yeah. Okay. What about we switch it up? Horror. Brad Pitt. Taika Waititi.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that'd really work.
The closest he's done to a horror movie is What We Do in the Shadows, and that's very,
very
very
much.
much a comedy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how he does horror. I think he can make it work.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so what's our plot? It's a Taika movie.
I don't even know.
I think with Taika, you got to make it. I think when he does sort of like little local stories, I think that's when he's really at his best.
I agree.
When he does those New Zealand stories, that's I think his better films. When he does more like broader sort of stuff, it kind of doesn't. It works, but I think he's much more
Doesn't work as well.
Yeah,
I
on
agree.
the ball when he does these little like other
Okay, what if we have a one location sort of film, a bit like Boy,
Yeah.
which is all centered around one house, but make it even tighter. Some haunted house somewhere, one haunted house, and then Brad Pitt. Maybe Brad Pitt's the caretaker of this house, and like he's like, it's not actually haunted. I live here, I work here, I keep it maintained. I show it off to the tourists, whatever. But then it is haunted.
Is it set in New Zealand?
It could be. I don't know of any New Zealand houses that are supposedly haunted, but yes,
Right.
we'll make it set in New Zealand.
I think it'd be cool to see Brad Pitt in another place, like America, like just in another world. I feel like that would add to the horror element.
Yeah, I think him doing like a bit of a fish out of water,
Yeah.
or like a sticking out sort of thing, especially
obviously works for Taika.
in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, if you're
maybe
doing-
he's moved there from overseas.
the US.
And he was like, he's retired early or something, moved over, and he's found this spot, and he's just decided it's where he's going to become a caretaker.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me of those stories of like all these American millionaires who like suddenly buy property in New Zealand because, I don't know, for tax reasons or like because they think the world's going to end. So they just buy property in New Zealand just to move there, just in case like everything falls apart. You can probably do something with that. He's like some sort of tech entrepreneur and then suddenly moves to New Zealand to sort of buy this house to caretake it and something. And I think that's something to say about, especially if you're talking about like a haunted house or property, especially with like New Zealand and like sort of foreigners coming in, like white foreign, like, you know, colonizers coming in and taking over indigenous properties, especially. I think Taika Waititi would probably have
he would lean into that.
He would lean into that, I think, especially with horror,
Yeah.
has those elements that can really be explored.
Mm-hmm.
There is a place in New Zealand called the Vulcan Hotel.
That's
which
a great name.
I was looking at places. A lot of them are like, there's a prison, there's a castle, there's like an island. There's like this is the most down to earth. So maybe he's the caretaker. There's these guests coming in. And have you guys seen, I can't remember what it's called, the one about the motel that Chris Hemsworth is the villain, the horror movie?
Cabin in the Woods?
No.
That's like Bad Times at
the El Royale. Yes, that's it. I'm thinking it could be sort of like that vibe where maybe he is the villain, but we don't realize that. He's like the caretaker.
That's good.
There's these guests coming in, and then we see the events as the haunting starts, and they start, I don't know, getting murdered or disappearing or whatever. And so it's all in this one location. And then maybe at the end, Brad Pitt, who has been like leveraging this haunting and, I don't know, made a deal with them or something, whatever we want to do. He, at the very end, the spirits or whatever it is that's killing people decide that they've had enough of the deal, or they aren't satiated by the guests he's bringing in. He's not bringing in enough guests, and so they get him too. And that becomes a little bit like comedic in the turnaround of it in Taika's style, but also horrific.
And Brad Pitt rarely plays the villain, so it'd be a good twist, I feel.
Yeah, I think he should play the villain more. I think he's kind of got that.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I'm not like the biggest Brad Pitt fan, but I think he
definitely can do it.
He can do the villain. He can do villain, I think. I think he can be really unlikable.
I just feel now he just wants to hang out, like in most of the time in Hollywood, just drive a car, look cool.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's the best Brad Pitt, but he could do that for sure.
He's just here to have a good time.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he could have a good time just chilling as the caretaker, and then he'd only have to do like one major scene where he dies.
Yeah, he wouldn't have to try too hard. Just when he turns into the villain, he'd probably have to turn it up a bit. But
yeah,
through the beginning, he can just chill,
be the vibey,
chill,
like late middle-aged man who's just like, yeah, come on in to my definitely not haunted hotel. Stay a while.
One thing, I feel like all of Taika's movies are about like a relationship. So should we pair him with someone? Maybe not someone in the house with him, but like a spirit.
Ooh.
Like he's talking to a spirit the whole time. He's kind of trying to, I don't know.
What if it's like the spirit of a kid? So like there's these evil spirits, and then there's this kid spirit, and he's doing it for the kid spirit. But then it turns out the kid spirit's like the reason he's the villain. Mm-hmm. So maybe this kid spirit is actually like this twisted manipulator or something.
Oh yeah, like the spirit is manipulating him to get to get more souls, and then he feels like a connection to it because it's like, I don't know, you can probably build upon that. Like, why is there this random middle-aged 50s man
but we
retiring to New Zealand? Yeah. Like, he probably some sort of tragedy in his life.
That shouldn't be revealed till the end, though. So we should watch the first half of the film and see these two connect and be like, oh, this is really cool. Like, this guy and the spirit are connecting. And in the end, you realize it's bad for everything.
Yeah.
He's manipulating him and he's become a villain. I don't know. I feel like that's really subversive.
Yeah, we establish at the start that spirits are real in this world, and Brad Pitt has a relationship. Maybe he genuinely doesn't know about the hauntings that are going on in the hotel. Like, he's just there to have a good time in the hotel. He knows it's haunted because he's got this spirit there, but he thinks that's it.
Right.
And then things start going wrong, and he's like, But then the spirit starts manipulating him, and he becomes the villain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good.
And so we would then probably need like a lead actor beyond Brad Pitt. Brad's the villain. We need the person who like brings us into the hotel as well.
I feel like a really old guy.
A really old guy?
I would go like young.
Wait,
like
to
20s.
play the kid or the...
No, not related to either of those two. Like a separate character that brings us into the hotel and starts the story off.
Right, okay.
You kind of
from there.
Yeah, well, young protagonists, like, I don't know, someone who's up and coming in their 20s.
I mean,
not like
we could throw Julian Dennison in there again.
Yeah.
That'd be good. That'd be cool.
I mean, he's played off Sam Neill.
Yeah.
Who's a bit older.
Yeah.
But we could also... We could get one of like the Stranger Things kids and see how Taika deals with someone like that. Or alternatively, an unknown.
You don't want someone
young New
too big
Zealand
because you
actor.
already got Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got him.
I'm thinking an
Julian
unknown.
Dennison's good.
Julian Dennison is good, though we don't want to make it so that he's always with Taika. So
True.
we could do Julian Dennison, or we could do some unknown New Zealand actor.
Yeah, I feel like that's best.
Yeah.
How much is that character going to be in this story?
I think they're the main character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think like
So he's there the whole time.
Yeah,
If Brad's going to become the villain at the end,
Oh, so this
we don't
this
want
person
him
bringing him in is taking place of that spirit that he's connecting to.
No.
he would be the young person. They'll be the protagonist. They'll be like the vessel in which the audience follows the movie through.
Okay.
So like the every person. So I
Right.
think that's why you kind of go someone more a bit unknown, so they're not really distracting.
I'm with you now. I'm
Yeah.
with you now.
And so then in the background, Brad Pitt and this spirit are having a
I
connection.
see.
And he's not at the start, he's genuinely not a villain. But then he gets manipulated into being the villain at the end. And that's why we need someone, like, we don't want to end with Brad Pitt being the villain, but also the main character. Because then it's like, that's not a satisfying Taika story, even as a horror movie. We want, like, maybe the main character's friends all die, or maybe the main character even dies and becomes the spirit. And then, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe the cycle begins again.
I see. I was lost for a second there, but you got me back.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
What's it called?
The Vulcan Hotel.
The Vulcan Hotel.
No, because Hunt for the Wilder People, they're out in the wilderness. They talk about becoming the Wilder People. It's very literal.
Mm-hmm.
So is Boy. That's literally his name.
So is JoJo.
So is Jojo Rabbit. What we do in the shadows, though, is a bit quirky.
Mm-hmm.
Next Goal Wins, which isn't out yet, but that's also like, it's telling you what happens in the movie, but it's not explicit.
So something related to the twist, maybe? Or no?
No, maybe not so explicit.
Right.
Something like, we could just call it the Vulcan Hotel. We could even call it Vulcan. Or it could be like
I think
Hotel on the Hill.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me of like Haunting of Hill House.
True, that's
yeah.
so true.
Oh, it'd be
So
like
not
something
that.
like he would do like Welcome to the
Welcome to the Vulcan.
Hotel.
That's
Or
a good
Welcome
name.
to the Vulcan.
That's a
Welcome
good
to the
name.
Vulcan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I can see Taika releasing something called that.
for sure. That sounds like a good movie. I would definitely.
Like just based on the title.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
the whole
that
thing.
and the plot, like
Yeah.
summary.
I'd go watch that.
Yeah.
I mean,
feel like that's the best
Taika's
story we've
hilarious. Like,
created.
we've made it a horror movie, but there would be so much comedy in that.
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Especially in the first act
Yeah.
before the horror starts.
Oh yeah, it'd be hilarious.
I'd
like,
want a pure horror scene though, like a
yeah,
really thrilling.
the
yeah.
ending, or even like the
Something in the
climax of
middle.
the second act.
Yeah.
would be like pure horror, and it's not that it would be a twist
Mm-hmm.
like for the audience,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be a twist in the tone of the movie. Like we'd have comedy with a bit of horror here and there, maybe throughout. The first act would pretty much just be comedy, sort of like with some suspense. Then the second act is comedy with a bit of horror. And then the end of the second act going into the third act is like really horror.
That's great.
Yeah. And Taika can do that. I mean, Jojo Rabbit is a great example of just complete tonal shift.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And it's played like you think it's going to be a bit sort of forced, but actually he does it so well and so subtly that you're like, oh, that's actually like such good filmmaking in terms of being able to shift from tones.
I'd love to see him try horror too. I don't think it'd be bad, but even if it was bad, I'd like to. It'd be cool to see him try.
If it was bad, it would be campy, and then it would be What We Do in the Shadows, and then it would be good. So
honestly, I want to see every director try horror once in their life. Like, wouldn't you want to love to see what a Christopher Nolan horror film looks like, even if it was bad?
that would be terrifying, I think.
It'd be crazy, and it'd be so cool to see every director and like just attempt it.
Yeah, I think you see like a lot of like really early in their career, like just coming out of film school, a lot of directors just start with horror because the conventions of horror allow you to play with story structure, and also like supernatural elements kind of keep it a bit open, so you can kind of have these sort of world-breaking kind of elements and sort of explain it through, it's the conventions of horror.
And you can make it on such low
Yeah.
budgets too. Evil Dead made on like $20.
Yeah. Like best horror like is the low budget
Mhm.
sort of I love sort of schlocky 80s horror. I think it's great.
Evil Dead 2 is one of my favorite
Evil
movies.
Dead is great.
Yeah.
Like all those like Gremlins is
Yeah.
great. Love Gremlins. Even if it's like horror, but it's super campy. Gremlins too as well. So, and also 50s. I mean, I love 50s horror. Like
50s through 80s horror, just
Creature
amazing
from the
stuff.
Black Lagoon, and even the original Little Shop of Horrors. I forget the director, but he's like a bit of an auteur. He's great.
I know that even The Thing, I know that's not like super low budget, but that feels like very just
Oh,
doable.
from the 80s?
Yeah, 82.
Yeah. That one
Love
was
that.
great. That's just like great structure.
I just really
like,
love that
how
movie.
to make a good I wouldn't have like people say, oh, it's a horror, but I'm like, that's just a thriller film.
Oh,
like it's
dude,
just thriller.
The blood test scene, I've never been more on edge besides
Yeah.
No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
I haven't watched enough horror movies to contribute to this conversation, but I agree that every director should try horror. I know, like, I love when there's not a horror movie, but it has horror elements. Like,
That's always
the one thing when I say that I always jump back to is like episode 6 of season 1 of The Mandalorian, the one with the prisoners on the ship, and they betray Mando, and then he like gets them all back, and there's that sequence with Bill Burr with the flashing red lights, and Mando's there, and then he's not there, and then he's not there. That, like, the hairs on my arms stood up. I was like, oh, whoa. Like, horror elements in other things are fantastic.
It's always cool when horror elements get added to
Yeah.
something that you don't expect. I feel like that's when it works even better, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to see every director try their hand at horror would just be incredible.
Yeah.
So the Film Society has a couple of events coming up. We've talked about them last week. We're going to talk about them this week as well. We've got trivia on the 26th of September, which will be at UC Bar from 5:30 to 6:30. So come along. It's just a Kahoot, pretty easy. You don't have to do anything to join. You don't even have to be a member. Just come along. There will be prizes provided by the bar, and we will bring along some of our own. Weekly watch party. Check out Discord. See what's going on. And then at the end of the year, the UC Film Festival. Get your films ready. If you're a member of the society, you get free entry. Tickets cost $15. Society membership costs $10. So I think we know which one's better. If you're a society member, you can submit as many things as you like because all entry is free. So you can submit to every category you want. So yeah, check it out. That'll be at the end of the year. We'll post an announcement about it reasonably soon once the crux of semester is over. But that's pretty much it for the Film Society stuff happening this semester. We finished the Scene Recreation competition and had our screening in the past couple of weeks. They were very exciting. Make sure you're staying on top of our Instagram, Facebook, and Discord for any further announcements. Thanks for joining us this week. Ollie, thank you for being our first guest that's not directly involved in the Film Society committee.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been awesome. Love to hear about Run. Great selection of movie director and actor. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Jim Jarmusch and Jesse Plemons. Fantastic. Next week, I believe I am the guest. I have to talk about my favorites, just like Jake did last week. And then Jake will be talking about Boogie Nights.
Oh, I cannot wait.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Cam and I will be
have never
watching
seen
it.
it. I made them watch Taxi Driver. Now I'm making watch.
Like
Look at this.
that first scene. It's like just how to do one.
My
take.
favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
beginning.
Oh my
it's like
God.
how to do an
It's just a
introduction of a
masterclass.
film. Oh, great! I love that film.
So if anyone wants to chat about that with us next week, go and watch it before the episode goes out, and you can hear what we have to say, and if you agree or disagree, and then you can send us a message. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
See ya.
That's a wrap.